Hello, Marion.
Ladies and gentlemen, Stan Solo has done it again. Now, I know I've just said the word Stan Solo, and when you say those words out loud, somewhere, an anti-repro person says something to the effect of,
"Where'd you get this, from him?"
The fact of the matter is, I don't care, because this is an amazing achievement, and one that I could not believe he even forayed into. Because let's be honest, the Kenner Adventures of Indiana Jones line was never a huge hit. It was a very small select group of toys. And while toy collectors in the modern era have recognized it for its quality, its uniformly wonderful aesthetic, and the simply great toys it produced, at the time it kind of got run over for other things like Star Wars and the relaunched G.I. Joe and Masters of the Universe coming out. It was not the hit that it should have been. And honestly, as I've said many times over the years, Indiana Jones has never been the hit that it should have been on toy aisles. For whatever reason, Indiana Jones does not move action figures. I don't know why. It's a sad state of affairs, but that's the reality. Sometimes the things we really love don't rocket to stardom like we want.
I can only say I'm sorry so many times.
Well, say it again anyway.
Marion Ravenwood, an absolute grail piece in toy collecting history. One that was not only underproduced, but also really hard to find at the time that she came out. One of the reasons that the Indiana Jones line failed was because people could not find Indy and Marion. Now, Indy has since shown up in slightly larger quantities, but Marion was short-packed. She was a female figure in the 1980s and the only female figure of the Indiana Jones line. So as you can imagine, she wasn't going to be produced in high numbers.
He was wrong and you knew it.
How does the Stan Solo one stack up? I'm blown away. The Stan Solo Marion Ravenwood, in both carded and loose forms, is the answer to every vintage toy collector's Kenner Indiana Jones conundrum. I'm complete, but I don't have Marion. Now, if you're a mint-on-card collector, Stan Solo has you dead to rights. He's got an option for you. The Stan Solo Marion Ravenwood cardback opts to replicate the version with the Belloc mail-away offer, not the offerless version. Thankfully, the vintage cardback in my collection for Marion was one with the Belloc mail-away offer, so I was able to do a really good comparison between the Stan Solo and the vintage original. The nice thing about this card for people who are sticklers for repro is it is markedly different from the original Kenner Indiana Jones Marion Ravenwood card. All of the important visual elements are there. I don't want to imply that there is some glaring redesign of this card where it can't display with your vintage MOC figures. It totally can. But it has a slightly different shade to the colors on it. It's a little muted down. On top of that, instead of it saying articulated on the card, it says movable. And, this being the most obvious tell that this is a reproduction, is that Marion does not come with a figure stand like she did in the original version. The original version of Marion's feet were so small and dainty that Kenner knew they had to provide her with a custom figure stand so she could actually stand up in play scenarios.
"I would very much like to see you in it."
A better one.
For whatever reason, Stan Solo has opted not to put a figure stand with this Marion. That's not a problem though, because any figure stand that accommodates modern Hasbro 3 3/4-inch action figures like the Vintage Collection or G.I. Joe 25th Anniversary will fit this figure just fine. And if you're a major toy collector like I am and you have a pile of these stands, one will fit her no problem, as you can see here. The actual Stan Solo figure is almost a spitting image for the original vintage Marion. Her face is a little more narrow than the vintage original, and her neck flares out a little more. So you've got a slightly thinner face, but you've got a slightly thicker neck. In a master stroke of soft goods forensic replication that I do not know how Chris pulled this off, he replicated her lace dress perfectly. I have no idea how he achieved this, but I cannot find a flaw. And the really nice thing about that is even if you're a stickler for vintage over reproduction, all of the surviving vintage Marion dresses have dead elastic at this point. So for display, Marion can look pretty silly. But if you get the Stan Solo one, but you still want to display your vintage original, you can put that fresh new dress on your vintage Marion and it will look like 1982 all over again. One of the last notable details about the Stan Solo version that is markedly different from the vintage original is the monkey accessory.
Do we need the monkey, huh?
I'm surprised at you, Jones, talking that way about our baby.
The vintage original monkey accessory had texturing sculpted into the fur to make the monkey look, well, furry. The Stan Solo monkey accessory does not have this texturing. It is more of a smooth molded accessory. However, this monkey was a small accessory, and when you're standing more than, say, 2 feet away, you cannot tell the difference. I really don't know how to adequately express what a huge achievement this is, and how important it is to a lot of vintage toy collectors, especially those who are Star Wars Indiana Jones kids of, early to mid Gen X. This is a grail piece from a really lost line. This line, I remember being on clearance at Toys R Us as a child, and I was getting into action figures around 82, 83. I knew who Indiana Jones was, I had seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, I saw the Well of Souls sets on clearance, but I was trying to get R2-D2 and Han Solo and Darth Vader and all those characters. And like so many children, I passed up this line. Only later, and not much later, like 2.5, 3 years, and suddenly I was all in on Indiana Jones. I really understood why it was so amazing. I wanted those toys so badly, but they were all gone. All the good ones anyway. The ones that were left were the Swordsman and the Mechanic and Indian German disguise, maybe. So then as an adult collector, I start buying the line up, and some of the prices are a little high for different parts and pieces, but it was understandable. But then when you hit Marion, it's just like, dang, what am I supposed to do? And now it's astronomical. This is the perfect time for this to hit, and it couldn't have happened from a better maker than Stan Solo. If it had been anybody else, I'd have been, but Stan Solo understands Kenner intrinsically. I've never seen anything like it. You saw my video about the Slave Leia. You've seen my other videos about Stan Solo products in the past. The guy understands the Kenner magic, and he understands how to recreate it. Even better than Hasbro. Hasbro's retro collection announcements, they're like reaction figures. They're kind of hinting at the Kenner vibe, but they're not quite there. And their recent announcement of the retro vintage Kenner Indiana Jones does not look like the Kenner Indiana Jones. There's something wrong going on with that head. His head looks squished and tiny and not perfectly replicated. And that has been a problem with the Hasbro Retro collection, even in the Star Wars line. It is hit and miss. Stan Solo, on the other hand, he knows how to recreate that magic and put it back in the bottle. And this Marion, not only is it up to Stan Solo's known reputation for quality and perfection, but the most important thing to me is that the Stan Solo Marion doesn't cost a fortune while still providing all of the glory.